what a horrible burden for a child. Tara, I mean, you were older. I think you were 25.
Yes,
But
25.
yeah, but right now with this Anna Walsh case, she's leaving behind, much like Collier, what happened to Collier. Father's going to more than likely go to prison for life. The mother is dead, presumed dead, and there's a 6, a 4, and a 2-year old. How much do you feel for those young children? And I guess if they're old enough for you to offer them advice, what would you say to them?
I would say that, parents are flawed as much as you might have like the best dad or best mom or, best two moms or best two dads or whatever. That parents are flawed no matter what, and no matter what situation you are in life, it's really great to have therapy or a coach with an unbiased opinion that is able to tell you what is healthy and what may be toxic, because coming from a household where trauma is the main thing, it's so important to learn how to cope. And those kids, coming from, I'm just assuming, a narcissist in this case, in a codependent relationship and an empath relationship, those kids are going to have a multiple of the spectrum of emotions. They're going to see their mom probably be the empath, and they're going to see the dad be the narcissist. So they're going to have different reactions, and they're going to take different roles in the family. Maybe one is going to become the protector, and maybe one is going to become more the empath. Maybe one is honestly a psychopath, a sociopath, or it depends on their brains, and it depends on how they were raised and how they're being raised from this point on. So I think that it's super important to have just kids in general in therapy.
And Collier, to you, same thing. I mean, you are one of these children. You're a touch bit older when it happened, but again, these kids are 6, 4, and 2, the Walsh children. If they were old enough to heed your advice, what would you say to them?
What resonates with me the most of what is going through with these children, I mean, they're obviously much younger than I am. There's no body. And I know you're a man of the Jewish faith. There is a process that goes through. Your body gets returned to the earth, right? From my understanding, look, I'm not Jewish. Like I said, I was raised Catholic, but there is a sort of rite of passage in that way. You process onto the afterlife. There's a finality to that. One of the things that was the most difficult for me is I was not allowed to go to my mother's funeral. And it wasn't until I was premiering my film in my hometown of Mansfield, Ohio, in the same theater that my mother used to volunteer at, filling sodas at the soda fountain for my friends. Before I got on that stage, before I went to that screening that day, I opened up my diary, and a prayer card from my mother's funeral that I was not allowed to go to fell out. I hadn't seen that thing in over a decade. I don't know how it got in there, but it did. I got up on that stage and I talked about how life is circadian, and how that moment, I realized right then in that moment that that was my mother's funeral, and that we together as an audience in my hometown, we were finally laying her to rest, and I was finally able to lay her to rest. I often tell people a lot that morning when I woke up and I went downstairs and I confronted my father, it was a race, and I haven't stopped running. I never took my foot off the gas. I still haven't. These kids are going to have to find a way to process this. And we can sit here and I can give them every adage in the book. We can give them all the advice in the world. I'm going to say for the adults around them, let them grieve. Let them process it. Don't tell them to suck it up and be tough, buddy. And when they come with these emotions, don't try to sweep them under the table, under the carpet. You need to allow these kids to have their experience with this. And this isn't going to happen right now. They're 2, 4, and 6. The 6-year-old maybe is sort of is going to process that his mother isn't coming back, but probably not. It's when they're older. It's when they get into adolescence, when they're young adults, this stuff starts to hit. I see so many people, and Terra does too, that we encounter that have been through massive trauma. And they don't begin to process these things until maybe they're in their 30s sometimes. And you think about, oftentimes you look at situations where you go, oh God, this guy really just fell off the deep end, like it went crazy. Got to kind of like peel the onion back and look at like what people have been through in their lives, what trauma they've faced. Now, it might not be as extreme as their father murdered their mother and maybe chopped them into pieces. They were attacked in a parking garage by their stepfather and had to defend themselves and felt self-defense and take the life. But when we go through these things, we have to process them. We have to have that support system that allows us to process them. So to the adults, the responsibility that you're taking on is no joke. And you've got to be there for those children, but you've got to be all in. You've got to allow them that process. And you have to allow them to be angry. And you have to allow them to be happy. And you have to allow them to also, one of the things that Terra and I talk to when we talk to other survivors that have been through really crazy shit, is you have to be able to laugh about it and have a little bit of a sense of humor. You know, my mother had such a sardonic sense of humor. And she used to say to me as a kid, she used to say, Collier, famous last words. The night she was murdered, she was on the phone with her best friend. And my father comes down the driveway and in his truck, and she can see his mother in the passenger side. And she goes, well, he showed up with his mother, so he can't kill me tonight, I guess.